Next, Dr. Mehmet is a heart surgeon. He's an Emmy award-winning TV host, 3.2 million X followers. He now has a day job. He's the 17th administrator of the CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. He's one of the most influential Harvard graduates anywhere. He is an MD. He is an MBA. Dr. Oz, welcome to Axios
Thank
House.
you, Michael. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. Axios aims to be useful with our coverage. And when we're sitting in the green room, you looked at the brownie, the fruit, and the macadamia nuts. And you said if you were going to pick one of those to eat, to nosh, it would have been the macadamia nuts. Why?
So Mike was sucking information out. He did not pay his copay, by the way. I tried to collect. First of all, if you eat breakfast, which you probably shouldn't, breakfast was a marketing gimmick. The concept that we would wake up in prehistoric times and have food ready for us was unlikely. There's no refrigerators. There's no dead animals lying around. So you need to go out and forage and get your breakfast. So you should probably eat your first meal maybe 10:30, 11 in the morning. And when you eat that first breakfast, it should not be a carb breakfast because that causes disarray of your metabolic system. The best thing to eat is something that's got tons of nutrients in it because your brain is not looking for calories, it's looking for nutrients. The macadamia nuts, of the options I had, rich in healthy fats. It has saturated fats as well. The new food pyramid, which you saw, we announced at a press conference 2 weeks ago with Secretary Kennedy, flips the triangle back in the way it was supposed to be, which is to allow people to focus away from simple carbohydrates. So focus more on that reality. The processed foods that are designed for shelf life, not human life, are the things we want to reduce in quantity. And of the options, these macadamia nuts were great for the reasons I stated. They're baby trees, basically, right? They're nuts that will grow. So your brain knows that there's tons of nutrients in them and it doesn't crave additional calories, unlike the simple carbs, like the brownie, which would give you a little boost of energy, but rapidly dissipate away as your body gets the sugar out of your system. But your brain, very wisely, says, Mike, you didn't give me any of the nutrients I need, so you're back foraging like a little pig in the trough, getting more food.
Let the record show that despite that pro tip, the doctor abstained. Doctor, as President Trump has had a very aggressive presence here from across the administration has been sending messages back home, really engaging in Davos in a way administration hasn't in all the time that I've been coming here. What is your personal job one at Davos?
Number one job at Davos is to make sure people actually hear what we're trying to say. You would think it would be self-evident. We're talking all the time. And I do want to applaud Axios. We actually read Axios. We feel your coverage is very surgical. It can be bloody at times, but it's generally accurate and designed for a good purpose. And so the messages that are communicated, especially to our peers in Europe, and of course everyone comes to the World Economic Forum from around the world, they don't hear what we're trying to say in our voice. And much of the conversation happens outside the meeting rooms. So the ability to communicate, in my case, to a health minister or the head of a pharma company or someone else who's got a multinational presence but needs to know what we're trying to do in the United States is invaluable. And there's an informality at Davos. You can't run away. You're basically in the environs of the village. So there are many opportunities to connect with people in ways that allow you to be a bit more transparent in what your goals are. And I find that it's conducive to decisions being made, or at least connections, bonds being formed that can facilitate the right choice at the right time. You have to be careful. There's without question, I'll just say it here, there's a globalist element to this process that it can be frustrating when you sometimes feel you're talking to people who spend most of their time in the faculty lounge in their tweed jackets. Speaking metaphorically, I don't believe that we always have a good pulse on what's really happening, even within our own countries. So we have to go out and look. One thing President Trump does exceedingly well is a remarkably empathetic person. Some of you may be surprised that I say that, but knowing him personally, but also working for him, he connects on the issues that really do matter to human beings. And so that's why I think he sort of knows ahead of most polls where people feel they need the most help. For example, the focus on affordability, both in the campaign and now, comes from an appreciation that it is incredibly frustrating if you're a young man and you have a full-time job and can't afford a home to grow a family in. That wasn't the case when we were young, Mike. Most of our generation, if you had a job, you could buy a home. So these are the kinds of things that drive him to make bold decisions. I'm focused, of course, on the economy. The health economy. And that's a place where we definitely see problems with access. The $50 billion we just put into the rural parts of the United States, which will take care of 60 million people, is designed to right-size the system so we don't have a decade life expectancy difference between different parts of the country. Those are the kinds of big plays, big swings that he likes to make. And we heard him speak yesterday and today on stage in ways that I find I get goosebumps when you see images of what Gaza might look like. When you see and appreciate what we could do by making drug pricing fair so that we pay similar amounts in the United States as is paid in Europe, not 3 times more. Those seem like things that should have happened a long time ago. And the fact that he has the endurance to keep pushing us. And when I say that, he calls you. Like if it didn't happen, he will call you. If you get a phone call at a weird hour, there's a pretty good chance it's POTUS. And he's watched something you did or noticed something you didn't do, and you'll hear about it.
And he is always watching. Your colleagues in the cabinet tell me they definitely hear. Doctor, you mentioned rural health, and we saw you, heard you in the East Wing, East Room last week talking about the president's historic investment in rural health, $50 billion going to all 50 states. You personally at CMS in December opened an Office of Rural Health Transformation. Tell us why that has become a priority and how will you know if you're successful?
Every great people takes care of their most vulnerable. We're a great nation. We will do that. It's why I love Medicaid so much. Now, Medicare takes care of older folks. And of course, it's the crown jewel of the U.S. system of safety net. But the Medicaid is the payer of last resort. They take care of the vulnerable folks, the folks that are often said live in the shadows. Most kids are born into poverty. They're on Medicaid. And so we've got to take care of these programs. The Medicaid investment in rural health care has been lower than it should have been, I believe. This is the largest investment ever from Medicaid into rural health care, and is designed to bring the rural parts of the country into the 21st century. And I'll give you one good example. AI, which I know appropriately, understandably, many people fear because of what it might do bad for us, is the main way we will give many parts of the United States, and I believe much of the world, access to care. You want the best quality care possible, take the best ideas that are out there, scale them using agentic AI. But to do that, you have to rethink the fundamental culture of how we offer healthcare. Because you've got to get a very balkanized system of health delivery in the United States to start to think about the world differently. And like in any business, and I run a $1.8 trillion business basically, culture eats strategy every day. I have to extract the best ideas from people in the middle of the organization and let those bubble to the top and get endorsed by folks who have to make the big budget decisions, leadership decisions. And that's my main goal. And when you come to a place like Davos, you want to know how are other people trying to do the same thing? How do they try to incorporate AI, robotics, technologies that can be scary because of how they'll transform our lives, but also what they could do that is otherwise unachievable. And I think at this year's Davos, I heard both.
Doctor, putting on your surgeon's hat, how will AI change medicine in 3, 5, and 10 years? And something interesting you told me while we were waiting in the wings here, you said AI has a people problem.
I think talking about AI in 10 years is almost a futile effort. I think most of the changes are going to happen in 3 to 5 years. So let me focus in that shorter term period. I think we'll have robotics in 3 years that can actually do some of the things that right now are huge issues for us at CMS. We don't have obstetricians in many counties in America. You can't get drugs to the North Shore, the North Bank of Alaska. There's some things we have to be able to do better at. Robotics already are being proposed in that $50 billion fund we have. That's a competition, by the way. So we wanted the best ideas. We wanted states competing with each other to be the best with new concepts that could revolutionize how they offer care to their most vulnerable. So one of the ideas we heard was use robots to do ultrasounds on pregnant women. Robots can do it. We already have simple systems that are effective. Then I heard yesterday we have technologies that are being pioneered in Africa where you can take a wand, you don't even see the image. You get digitized insights back that tell you whether the child's okay or not. And frankly, I don't have to see the image. I just have to know if the image is good enough to tell me the child doesn't have a problem. And so these are the kinds of things that are very uplifting. That's already happening. And within the next 3 years, before our administration is done, we will be using agentic AI to accelerate our ability to take care of people, especially when they're in places where we don't have access to care. For example, mental health care services in rural America, we will never, ever have enough practitioners in those areas to do this. No, Park Avenue docs are not going out to rural America to be psychiatrists. And that's a major challenge. We don't have primary care doctors in America. We have an average half to a third what the rest of the world has per capita. But we have AI systems now we believe can augment the ability of doctors to take care of patients by 5-fold, maybe more, without burning out, by helping them do much of the laborious work of collecting information and giving them some navigation tools, and most importantly, by allowing or empowering patients to control their own decisions. You can rapidly accelerate the system, meet people where they are.
Rapid round here. How will wearables change medicine?
You know, I was talking to Tim Cook yesterday. I was so proud, blustering about how Apple signed our pledge. So have 600 companies, by the way. All the major tech companies have signed a pledge to work with us on the digital transformation of most of what we're doing in healthcare at Medicare and Medicaid. And his main question was wearables, which to me tips me off that he thinks the wearables are a big part of the solution. I like wearables, but they can't just be wearables. They have to be aligned with other things that are happening in your life. The watch, actually, that Apple makes is effective for that reason.
How do you feel about my Aura?
I like the Aura Ring, but I find that many people will wear it for a while, and once you know your data, then you sort of already know the strategy for living healthier. You don't wear it as much, but there's a bigger problem. Mike, you care about your health. That's why you look like a gazelle, right? Now, most people, unfortunately, don't care that much about their health. I say most because we offer a free annual wellness visit to your primary care doctor for everybody in America who's on Medicare. It's free. No problems with access, it's all yours. Less than half of beneficiaries, less than half of the 68 million people on Medicare use it. Why? They don't prioritize it enough. And let me leave you with a number that's going to blow your mind. We should not think about healthcare as an expense. I don't care what we invest in AI, redesigning our baseline tech systems, giving people better access to care. All of it's worth the investment, and here's why. If we can get the average person who's working in America, and these numbers will hold for Europe and Asia as well, Africa, if you can get the average person to work one more year, just one more year in their entire life because they feel so healthy, so vital, so engaged, like they have so much agency to change the future and do what they're put on this earth to do. If they could work one more year in America, that's worth $3 trillion to the U.S. economy, $3 trillion to the GDP by harvesting, unleashing the power of the American worker. So getting people not just to survive their cancer, but to live long enough with enough vitality to work just one more year, which will do more than many of us, that will allow us to unleash that $3 trillion. That by itself makes every investment we make worthwhile.
How much of the population could benefit from GLP-1s?
About a third of the population could benefit, and I believe we'll use GLP-1s, the most favored nation drug pricing initiative that, God bless the pharma industry, they've come to work with us, and they have been willing to make concessions to allow us to price drugs fairly. One of the biggest breakthroughs was Novo and Lilly, two great iconic companies, obviously one Danish, one U.S., both came and said, we will sell our GLP-1 drugs, not for $1,250, but at roughly $200 to $250, and the pills will be $150. There are pills coming out. Now, why is that important? We can give that to everybody at those prices with the help of these pharma behemoths, and by doing that, we will save taxpayers money. I'll say it again. We're going to give these drugs to everybody. At the prices I outlined, we'll actually cover the price for Medicaid, for the poor people who need it really desperately, and most of the price for Medicare patients. But within 2 years, by driving down the downstream costs of obesity, which drive at least a third to a half of the healthcare system expense, we'll reduce hypertension, we'll reduce diabetes, and all the problems they cause. Dementia, heart attacks, renal failure, liver problems, all those we reduce so much, we will already pay the system back and be making money. I love that option. We're going to do the same thing with cell and gene therapies, things like sickle cell anemia. We're going to have treatments for dementia, a massive drain on the healthcare budget without a great result. You're still lying in a vegetative state at the end of your life. We don't want any of that. So invest in quality. The most expensive thing we do in medicine is provide bad quality care, which is why the questions you're asking, most of them are driving at that fundamental issue. How do we empower people, engage them to pay attention so they're not pre-contemplative, but they're actually thinking about how they can change their life, make it easy to do the right thing, which is what the MAHA movement is all about. And that phrase defines MAHA. And if you're curious about those answers, pay attention because you got lots more coming at you in 26.
You mentioned the MAHA movement. What do you say to critics who say that the administration too often makes healthcare medicine decisions based on pre-existing ideas versus new studies, science?
There's a lot of pre-existing ideas that are not science-based. Our decisions about eating carbohydrates versus fats, I mean, this was a scandalous unfortunate history of academic medicine where we did research, this is back in the 50s and 60s, that showed something that wasn't true and no one was willing to challenge orthodoxy. Like every other wonderful, valuable thing we do, there's always a risk that medicine, in my case, could slip into theology. As a physician, I can pray for my patients, and I do. And we were talking earlier. My wife went to theology school. My mother-in-law's a minister, so I get a double dose.
And you're a churchgoer.
And I'm a churchgoer. And I believe faith is vitally important to us dealing with the complexity management challenges of life. There's a reason our ancestors were able to build civilizations because they first believed in something bigger than them. That's the lesson, actually, of Potbelly Hill, which is the oldest known civilization in southern Turkey. My family's Turkish, so I'll take great pride in the fact that the first civilization was built with temples to their ancestors or to their gods. And because of that, they had the audacity to think they could change the world around them. But faith should not pollute science, and nor should politics. And I say that because if you mix politics and medicine, you end up with politics. You crowd out medicine. We witnessed that during COVID, and we sometimes believe, like we had an entire theology around about food that was erroneous. So you have to make some bold strikes there. However, I do advocate strongly for data driving our decisions. We have ongoing clinical trials studying just about everything you'd be worried about. And Jay Bhattacharya, who's a superstar, doctor and economist running NIH, has a ton of money put into simply confirming that what we think is true is really true. Because your worst mistakes in surgery happen when you follow bad data. It's not when you have no data, because when you have no data, you know you're flying blind. And you go with appropriate precautions. But when you think you're right because you have misleading data pointing in one direction, that's when you kill people.
Lisa's about to give us the hook, so penultimate question just off stage. You said hello to Steve Ubel, the CEO of Pharma. So I must ask you, how do you balance savings and innovation?
Innovation has to lead. Innovation is what makes America the country that it is. And we will always aspire to be, and we should be, leading with innovation. We believe we can innovate with more value. And I say that because, like the president spoke about yesterday, he compares the NATO decision, putting 5% of European GDP into a bucket for mutual defense. We have threats from outside, and we have threats from inside our bodies. And we put pharma in the same bucket. It is so vitally important to appropriately fund pharma that you want countries allotting more than 0.3% of their GDP to that bucket. In America, we pay 0.8%. So we'll pay more. It will be fair. We're a more affluent country than other countries. We'll pay our fair amount, but we shouldn't pay disproportionately more because even though we pay for the R&D research, we cannot continue to foot the bill. At some point, the bottom will fall out. And Steve and others in the industry they've been adults about this. You look them in the eyes, and you say, hey, this is a problem. What are you going to do? And, generally you say, all right, we're business people. We know how to make deals. The president's a great deal maker. Let's find out what we need to do next. And both companies based outside the U.S. and inside the U.S. have been very respectful to the process. I applaud them.
You're helping the president sell the great healthcare plan, very Trumpian branding there, I will say. Your good friends at the Washington Post had a profile of you in December. They said that you've garnered positive reviews, even from some Democrats. So how do you sell the president's healthcare plan to Democrats skeptics?
Actually, what the Post said was, I didn't suck as bad as they thought I would. That was the basic message. They had a great writer, and they did embed themselves in the organization. I actually don't like to do those articles much, but I did it, and I'll tell you why. Because my main job is to recruit the top people in the world to come work with us and help figure out a better way forward. So I do these pieces because I want to make it clear how cool CMS is, how you're not going to come there and sit in a corner somewhere as an accountant. We want people to come in who are passionate about changing the way we use money to incentivize the right care. The president wants to sell the great healthcare plan because he knows that some of the things we have created that are so valuable to America, if we don't codify them, could be blown up or could go too far. You want it just right. That is Goldilocks. You go too far, you kill innovation. You don't go far enough, you leave money on the table. So we want to codify the most favored nation drug pricing that we've been talking about. We want to codify transparency in the way we provide information, which is we still have data blocking taking place with large companies that benefit from that. We want that to end. And we want to take a look at insurance, where there are middlemen taking little bits here and there. But when you're talking about a couple $1 trillion, a couple billion here, a couple billion there, pretty soon it's real money.
As we say goodbye, we finish Axios with one fun thing. Today, we're going to do one useful thing. You are a heart surgeon. What is the number one way that I can avoid seeing a heart surgeon?
Well, it is to live the life your mother told you to live. And let me just break that down simply because it isn't rocket science, but we forget the fundamentals. You must walk 20 minutes a day. That's worth about $100 billion in savings to me alone, by the way.
How many steps do you recommend?
Well, I mean, 10,000 is a classic, but it doesn't matter. The 10,000 steps don't matter because you can be walking uphill, you can jog, if you can go endurance.
So 20 minutes.
20 minutes, just be active 20 minutes. Don't be intimidated. Get it in early. That way you control the first few minutes of your life. I do yoga every morning. I use that in place of steps sometimes if it's snowing outside, like it will be this weekend in Washington. Eat real food. Eat food that comes out of the ground. Look in the way it looks when you're consuming it. I won't say pray, but meditate. At least be aware of the remarkable impact, good impact you're having on the people around you, because that kindness will let you do the most important thing of all, which is to sleep. It is the most overlooked, most difficult thing to do because you don't fall asleep. You have to work at it. But if you can sleep, you're living a good life.
We so appreciate those of you who came. We know Davos is crazy. I get a little emotional when I visit with the guests here. Some of you waited in line to get in here. We so appreciate you reading Axios and enjoying and benefiting from our Axios Live journalism. Pause to thank the Axios Live team. What they do is miraculous. They have spent They have spent 51 weeks since they got home and unpacked last time, making Axios a success. Very grateful to the Axios journalists. Enos is here. You saw just a minute ago, Kate Marino is our great leaders who are here. You saw Courtney Brown sitting in this chair. A great group of Axios leaders. Others from Axios, including Madeline, our friend who's in the back, are many partners who have made these possible. So thank you all for a great Davos. I will see you 1 year today. Dr. Oz, thanks for a great conversation.
God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. You were so great.